I think because you mentioned the club as something we like as a space, but we like to speak of, we call it an abstract club. So I think we don't want to have such an easy way out that we think the club is just utopia, so everything is different at the club. The bodies, we look at bodies in a different way, or there's no competition, there's no judgment, but that's also not true, right? And still it's a realm where some special ways of togetherness can happen, but it's never so pure. And I think that's about our choice, that we don't want to make it too easy and just show you a club and then think, okay, that's where we move, but we move always in these very messy spaces and still have to create a world for us in that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like, and I read that you said that also it's a constant work to be done. Nothing is to be taken for granted, and especially now what we can see, you know, around us, that even claiming space, again, like wanting space, but also having the freedom to hide from visibility, is something that is a theme in your work. So, like, I mean, we can't really avoid it, seeing what's happening at the moment. And I'm not only thinking about, like, of course, the war, but I'm thinking more the development for example, queer people in Europe, but also in the States, where drag show becomes illegal, and even talking about gender diversity is something that you can, it's illegal some places. So suddenly all these activists, or I would say your work becomes even more serious, even more activist in that sense, while it's sort of, I would say, a very clever way of commenting this duality. Again, the need for being visible, to be recognized, to be seen, but also the freedom of not being seen all the time as the other. So yeah, that's maybe more like kudos than a question, but maybe you want to add something after all.
Yeah, maybe we can describe a bit how we work with that in Le Guerrier and the film that you see upstairs, that we did a lot of research into light and lights that you can add to costumes. And we also work with a fashion designer who works with us on the costumes. So it was very interesting for us to think about the question how movements of dancers can work with lights in a way that they give light to others, and they also take light away, and they give light to themselves, and they also take it away. And so we decided that there's only one exception, but usually, or in general, in the film, all the lights are fixed to the costumes of the performers. We wanted to, and also we wanted to create that kind of movement that you mentioned as a repetition or a maintenance work, a political maintenance work. So we asked two of the performers, Harry Alexander and Jules Cunningham, to create that kind of choreographic sequence that you see again and again in the film, where they move as a group, or sometimes in smaller or larger groups they move in a circle. And also the camera is in the center and always circles, also in the same kind of speed. And so there's also a repetition, and of course this film starts again and again, so you get the idea that they are doing that all the time, and they do that dance, and they perform their sometimes sad, sometimes joyous ways of doing that work.
And as you said about the costume, that they allow to control the degree of visibility of the dancers, what we also really liked is that a lot of parts are very dark, and you see almost nothing, but some parts are very bright, and when there's too much light, it's just blending, so they can disappear again, but in the light. So.
And Matthias was the first person that brought up for us the hypervisibility of queerness in a very beautiful text that we always really loved in that context. So I think it's also in that sense what we like very much is to build networks of people that kind of give each other ideas and thoughts and theorizing and making images and so on. So that's maybe the foundation of everything.
And I see we are soon running out of time, so we have to open up for questions now. I think we have like 8 minutes, 12 actually. So anyone want? Yes, Anila. I know we have a microphone somewhere.
One thing we haven't spoken about is the music, and there's a reference, I believe, of Julius Eastman in the title, Gay Gorilla, I think, and I wanted to hear you talk a little bit about the way you work with musicians, and maybe especially something about the music in this piece here.
For this piece, we worked with a musician called Terry Temlitz and asked them if we can borrow a piece. And Terry Temlitz we also asked them if we could use the song that is in Moving Backwards. So there's a kind of a longer kind of collaboration or discussion or interest of us in their work. And I think we use music not as a background that's always there. We like to use music at very precise moments in all our films. Even if it's dance, there is not always music in the little part that we showed of Moving Backwards. You hear a national hymn backwards. That's the Swiss hymn backwards. But music is plays a very important sound in our work. We work also since a very long time with Rashad Becker, who is a musician and who has done a lot of sound design and sound recording and composition for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, we like to use music as light, as agents that have their own life and where you realize their presence. And also the camera, that's also very important for us. We didn't talk about that. So that they are really visible in the work they are doing for the film. And Julius Eastman is, of course, also someone really important for us. We didn't want to claim that, but we like his idea very much to see music also as a form of resistance.
Okay, there's a lot of hands.
This microphone here.
I can come up just a second.
Hello? Oh, lovely. I was just curious on a really kind of lo-fi level, what is your everyday studio practice like as a collaborative duo, whether you individually go to the studio, like one of you put something on the wall or on the floor, and then the other one like comes in and completely hates it. And because I have been part of a collaborative duo, and I'm currently practicing being. There's a wall between us at the minute, so I'm just curious what you're on a. It's not related to the grand scale of your exhibition or anything. I'm just want to know the on the daily level. What's your? Do you go to the studio together? Do you walk together, have a chat, go to have a coffee, go to the studio? And go to the studio, or do you like, I'm in the studio now, you can't come until I leave?
No,
I'm just being nosy. And I also wanted to say, I was just very pleased to discover your work through this show. I've never heard of you before, and yeah, I'm an old lady, so yeah.
Well, no, but I like your first question. How did we start? You know, I think it's very important for us that we did a lot of other things than doing art before. You know, we were in political groups. We were in different collectives, in art collectives. We worked with a lot of people, and sorry, individually or together as well. You know, and I think that individually and together, and so I think that has really a big influence on our practice, because before we even starting working for this together on these art projects, we had already all this background together, and that really I think it's very different than when it's been a long time collaboration, so we know each other very well, and we have also had phases where one person takes over that part and then the other person we exchange. It's been a long.
And we started also like that to use those feminist practices. For instance, this is our third friend. We made a book together. And then we wrote texts together, gave them back and forth. And always, if one of us was not so skilled in one thing like the others, for instance, with a book, one of us was not so skilled in doing layout, then that person does the layout and the others support them to learn that. And our film that we did for television, for instance, we worked, the three of us, we always exchange. So one day one does the interview and the second records the sound and the third does the camera. I think that's also how we started, and to pick up where the other one has started. And I think, that's somehow the background of getting some practice in collaboration. But otherwise, yes, we go to the studio, we have a coffee, discuss some things.
Yeah? Any more questions? There must be some. Yeah.
I've been interested in the pauses because as much as you have music, you also have so many pauses, and it's very kind of in one way. It's never continuous. It's always kind of like you're starting again, or there's a break and what's next? And then there's these, so this kind of, what is that? Because I guess in one way the camera is in continuous movement, but there's this kind of, what does that pause mean, or the broken? Because it appears in all of the three films, I think.
Nice question.
Yeah.
Can I? Yeah. So for me, it has something to do, if I look at it from outside, so to speak, I feel it's something like entering the stage and going off the stage again. And it has this continuous appearance and go down again. And that somehow happens to us since the beginning. I don't know. Even if we don't use a stage, it always looks as if there is a stage. And I think we are very much interested in that precarious moment between not being on stage and being on stage, and that the stage also to see as something where you can have stage anxieties, or you have a bad dream and you think, as you said with your band, you dream you're on stage and you forgot your text, or you can have a great appearance where everybody loves you and where you can show off and so on. So, and it's always this in between where you're not just there and you're just thinking about moving there and then you start. And we like to have that moment there a lot, and I think that's how it happens.
Yes, some of the films you never know if it's the performance has already started or if it's already over. And this idea of the backstage or off stage is always very important, I think. and or the idea of the rehearsal as well. That sometimes you don't know if it's the like playing with this idea of when is it actually really the moment of the performance and when not.